Here we go. I'm just going to show you how to cast on a very small circumference item using the double point needle. So I have my double point needles, 6-inch ones. So I did try this with 8-inch, and you can absolutely do it with 8-inch, but the 6 are much easier to handle once you get all 4 needles loaded with stitches and then are knitting with the 5th needle. So I'm going to do a long tail cast on like I normally do, but this is not a tutorial on the long tail cast on, so I am going to just do it quite quickly. I'm just estimating how much I need. So I'm going to we just have to keep those from rolling. So I'm just going to tighten up my slip knot. And I just have this, I like it with the tail at the back. And I'm going to cast on 12 stitches all on one needle. Okay, 5, 6, 9, 12. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I have it all on one needle. I need to join in the round, and I need to do that without twisting. I'm pretty particular. I like this little, this kind of loopy edge to be the right side. So I'm going to transfer 6 of the stitches to another needle, and I'm just going to slip them so they're oriented correctly on the needle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're just going to think about this for a second. We want to start with this stitch because that's actually the first stitch that we cast on. So if we're going to knit in the round, I'm going to orient the needles so that the stitches are all at this end, ready for knitting. And you can see this is where they're joined, and we're going to join here, and my my knitting is ready to join, like oriented as if I was knitting. Okay, so the wrong side is inside. Oh, these are really rolly. That's how uneven our floor is. So I'm going to insert my needle into the first stitch of the join, and I'm going to just knit. So I'm going to knit 3 stitches because this pattern for the balls requires you to have 3 stitches divided over 4 needles. Okay, so that's 3 on the first needle. Now I'm going to pick up another needle, and I'm going to keep going. And because you've got a hold of the stitches that you're about to knit, your yarn, your whole ring of stitches doesn't start turning around, which when you have so few stitches on the needle, when that starts spinning around and you've got a bunch of needles going at the same time, it starts to get pretty confusing really quickly. Okay, so those 6 stitches that I transferred are now 3 and 3 on each of their needles. So now I'm just going to turn the work, and these are the next 3 stitches that I have to knit, but I'm just going to push the work down to the end so that I'm oriented. I have my next needle ready to go, and I'm going to knit. And even though I'm a continental knitter and I usually knit with the yarn held in my left hand, for working with double points for some reason, I still do throwing. It's just more comfortable for me. Okay, and now I have the last 3 stitches to do that are up there ready to go on the needle. Oh, just a little bit too close to the edge. Okay, so now this would be considered you have the cast on, and now you've knit one round. So when Arne and Carlos talk about this, they consider that two rounds done. So I'm just going to give you a couple other hints for knitting with double points in case you haven't done it before. I find it's always easier to have the needle you're about to knit the stitches off to be on top of the other needles. So you'll have this, and I'm gonna just do a couple of rounds just so you can see how, I just wanna make sure sorry, it gets a little bit, this is the tail, and my yarn to knit is back here, so you just need to keep your wits about you. And I can see that all of those, the orientation of the cast on stitches is the way that I want, that I'm knitting on the right side. So I'm gonna knit a couple rounds just to give a bit more fabric, so you can see how it looks. Okay, so we'll just go fast with this. So there's the next round done, and already you can see that this is working because I'm having nice knit stitches here. Okay, so I'll just do another round. Needles that you're working with on top. This is the next one. Needles that you're working with on top. Oh, that's the tail. I have to be careful of that when it's so short. Now, if you were actually doing your balls, Christmas balls, or if you're doing something else that makes a round circle, your knitting would actually be getting bigger because you're doing increases at the same time. But in this case, it's more just the technique to get your knitting started that we're demonstrating. So we're not going to add increases into the mix. So I can tell that this is going to be the last one of the next row. You want to watch where your tail is. I'm not using a marker, but you do have to realize that your first row where your cast on tail is, had only 3 stitches on it, so it's a pretty narrow little wedge at the bottom. And you just want to keep track of where that stitch is actually pulling out, and you can see it's at the end of these 3 stitches right here. Goes kind of a little bit to the middle, but you can tell. So now I think you get the idea. My stitches are all oriented correctly on my needles. There's no twisting. Those are all purl stitches in there. I only have knit stitches on the outside and for my stockinette. So I know that I've joined it correctly, and my needles are much more stable than they would be starting that if I tried to cast on 3 stitches on 4 different needles at the very beginning, or even if you start knitting, because some patterns do say cast on 12, then divide into 4 needles and then start knitting. But if you do that for the first round, you can do it, obviously, but it's very, there's no fabric to hold the needles in place, and you end up with a very floppy piece of knitting with 4 needles bouncing around all over the place, and it makes it really difficult. So I hope that helps. Thanks.